Welcome to the channel where all you gotta do is, well, I did a thing. I said I might, and I did. So it opened that up a lot. I've been kind of lagging on this because I didn't know how I was going to build the halo and the A-hoops for the roll cage, so and then the forward bars as well. So this is gonna, yeah, this is gonna open up way more possibilities, and I can do a much nicer job in there, get all this house paint off and whatnot. So anyway, and it should be much easier to make the notches in here for the roll cage to go through. So I can put the roll cage in, notch it, clearance it, I can bevel the edges all nice, and I can sandblast this out of the car. All the junk that was in my way isn't anymore. So even if I have to put a little notch in that little bump there. So that one, this piece here for the steering column gets sandwiched in between, so I left that there. But it all came out relatively easily. A couple of spot welds drilled there, a couple of spot welds drilled there, and then yeah, and then I just sawed straight across this thing, kind of equidistant from this edge here. So it should pop right back in. Oh yeah, there's a couple of under there. I drilled 2 spot welds out. That's all that's holding it in. I mean, there's bolts going through it after the steering column's in, but so this should be really nice, being able to get to the back side of this to fill up all these silly holes and whatnot. So didn't really want to do it, but yeah, it's gonna be a better product. So, and I'm not in a hurry. So okay, so I think I got the A-pillar bars kind of where I want it. I got my little cheesy, I need to slide them down there. And if you're going to use you're going to really use these, rubber band works fine, but O-rings work way better because you can kind of roll them in position because they're, you know, O-rings. So I think this is going to be good. It's going to be kind of out of my visibility, not perfect. The center seat car is way easier to make that happen, but I think it's going to be pretty good. And then I still have room for the trim underneath it, and I'll have to clearance the dashboard for that. And then all I need to do is like replicate this in CAD and come up with my bend sheet and bend it. And then obviously this side is a mirror image. So, but before I do that, I'm gonna put that fender on and all the, you know, all the giblets on there. Walk over there.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? Yeah, I'm gonna stick this guy on there, which goes up here, just to make sure I'm gonna have good clearance here. And these bends are, you know, they're a little abrupt 3-degree bends here and here and here. So, yeah. Anyway, back on it. Had some vacationing people here the last month or so. So, had a lot of progress on that. But, you know, I've had a lot of time to think about it. And like originally I was going to make a halo bar that comes here and across and back, and then an A-pillar bar. But I decided cutting the dashboard out has its own advantages, where I can get in there and fix a bunch of stuff and patch some holes and put the pass-throughs proper, steering column mount, all that junk, which will be way easier with all that stuff out of there. And then I can wire the outside of the car, not standing on my head. So that's nice. But yeah, it seems like I keep procrastinating to get, you know, stuff done, which, yeah, that's probably true. Okay, so I got this all kind of detailed out here on my O-ring, and I taped it in place so they can't move while I took it out. It stayed pretty close. So anyway, that's needs to be a little bit longer, 1.5 inches, something like that. And then I have all these bends, and I have that doesn't fit great, but I'll do the same thing on the like I did on this end. This thing's at a tiny little angle here, so it's like this arc and this arc are on a few degrees different. So that's kind of my challenge. So I may be able to just leave this flat on the workbench and then put an angulometer on this and rotate it and measure the difference, and then I'll have the difference between this bend and this bend. This bend and this bend are, I think it's pretty close to 90 degrees. So that's not a problem, but I think this is probably like 5 or 10 degrees. That on this plane of this arc, it's tilted up. So, and then of course I got to make the mirror image of it, which isn't a big deal. And then I got to go bend it. So, been waiting for this moment for many, many months. And the reason is I got to get this cage in. I got to get this cross member and subframe connectors and all this stuff welded in so I can put it on the rotisserie and start, like, you know, rotating it around and stuff. Okay, so I'm fixing to get ready to bend this pipe here. I got this cheesy method. This is just to hold it into a circle while I'm not using it, kind of thing. And I cut the pipe to length, and this is the one I'm going to replicate. I'll do the passenger side first because it's the one I already built, and then I'll do the real one. Okay, so that wasn't so bad. I got it all bented. And I got this every 7 inches. I put a 7-degree bend in it, which looks probably a little bit more aggressive than I needed to, but we'll get that in the car and see. If it tucks up a little closer to the roof, that's probably good anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna notch this and fit it, and then maybe make another one. Okay, so I got this bar all bent up. Should have showed you that. And then this is my fitted bar, and this is my cheesy whatever cheating device so I can notch this. So this is all like marked up with, you know, Sharpie. So what I've done is I've put these 3 white ones like kind of on the center line of this axis, 90 degrees ish. And then I've located all these guys. I got my O-rings on here, and I just pushed them in and out until it lines up with my Sharpie mark. That was when it was fitted in the car. Again, this is just there to hold it while I take it off, right? So it kind of guides it because it's longer than it needs to be. So now I'll just put a piece of painter's tape around here, not where the O-rings are, obviously. Don't put it on top of the O-rings. And then I'll use this to slide it off and slide it onto this one. And then I'll just line those white things up with the center line of this. And I'll measure from there to the start of the bend here, and from the start of the bend here to there. Make it approximately in this right spot, within, 1/8 of an inch probably. And then I'll fit it in the car, see how it looks. And then if I have to do more trimming, I'll do more trimming. Okay, so I notched that guy, and then I put it in the car, and I didn't really like how it fit. So I welded the piece that I chopped off back on, and I lengthened it by that much, and then re-notched it. So I was confident and wrong. But this is only like 6 feet of tubing. Only, right? It's $5 a foot or something, so 30 bucks for this. But I want this right, so I'm gonna, as long as I don't run out of tubing, have to drive to Bakersfield again to get more, we're okay. But even if we have to do that, that's fine. But I want this to fit right, and the reason I say it didn't fit right, it kind of fit, but the bend up here was a little bit down. It could have been up higher. And then back here, I was going to put the tube here, but I got lots of extra room over here. So if I move this over this way, that'll tuck in nicer. So I decided to do both of those things. And, if you do something 5 times, usually it gets better every iteration. So I'm going to make an iteration of this and redo my bend plans. But before I do that, I'm going to make sure this fits to see if I have to change this angle or the overall length or whatever. So anyway, don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn stuff. Okay, so after making that whole A-pillar bar and kind of messing it up, what I did was I sawed the bend out of here. And then I put basically a slug in there so I can swivel it. I'm not going to weld it together like that. I'm going to make it one piece. But now I have this all, I had this was bent a little bit too steeply, but now it's good. So that should be not in the way. And if I'm over here, this is driver's view. So that's going to be in the shadow of the A-pillar. This is about where you'll sit driving. So this one's going to be harder to get in the shadow, but because it's not a center seat, it makes it a little more difficult. But it's about as tucked in here as it's gonna get. So now I just gotta measure this guy and gotta blend up another one. Should be easy the second time because I know how to do it. It's just, gotta measure it all out, lay it all out right, and then follow my bend procedure because there's like some bends that are this way and some that are that way, so you gotta put the angulometer on it and get it the right way. Anyway, should be no big deal. Okay, so I got the passenger side all notched and fitting like I like on both ends. And I bent up the opposite side, which is similar except for a mirror image. So this bend is a mirror image of it. And so what I've done is I put my cheesy little O-ring and coat hanger device on here and kind of matched the coupe on this end, and then I marked it to the center line, like as laying flat on the table. So 12 o'clock to this little white guy here. And then I'm gonna lay this one out, put this on here, and then I'll trace that on there. But I'm gonna make it a little long because it's easier to take material off than to add it. So this is just like, this is kind of a weird coupe because it goes around. I'll show you here. It goes around that A hoop there. You can see the marker line on it, where it goes. So it's kind of going in at a cattywampus angle around a corner, and it's not round around the corner because, you know, mandrel bend, or the bending dies kind of ovalize it a little bit. So so I'm going to leave this, you know, maybe, well, I'll put this all the way to the end here. I know it's long enough. I put this all the way to the end of that, and then I'll cut it to kind of match that, and then I'll fit it and see what it looks like. And then there's no good way to do this. Just, especially when you got weird things that don't come in a perpendicular angle, you just have to cut, try, mark, cut, try, mark, cut, try, mark, like many iterations till you get it to fit nice, so you can have a nice gap to fill. And if you don't make it fit nice, then your gap to fill is going to suck, and then you're going to, you know, put too much heat into the material, blah blah blah. This is just mild steel, so it's a little bit less concerning. Like if you're welding chromoly, you got to have it fit beautiful, or else the heat affected zone makes it, well, in my opinion, the heat affected zone makes chromoly not worth it anyway, because the whole purpose of the roll cage is to stiffen up the chassis, but also to, when you hit something in an unfortunate event, you want things to bend. And if something is like super strong, it won't bend. And then if you have a chromoly tube that's heat treated and then you weld it, the heat effective zone on the end is the weakest link, and that's where it's going to break. It's not going to break here, it's going to break right next to the weld, like right here, and that's not helpful. I would rather have it bend where the impact zone is than break at an interface to another tube. So that's my engineering understanding of metallurgy and welding and heat affected zones coming in. But I know there's a lot of people that make chromoly cages because the rules allow you to go to a thinner wall, and of course it's lighter, so everybody's going to do that, right? I think I calculated on this particular cage, it's like 16 pounds lighter if I would have gone with a chromoly cage. So 16 pounds is nothing to sneeze at, but I would rather go with the what I feel is a safer cage. It's thicker, and the heat affected zones don't reduce the strength as much from middle of the beam to the near the weld of the beam. So anyway, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Okay, so I got this bar. Fairly happy with it. Perfect. It's pretty darn good though. Tucks up in there nice. It's got a little bit of clearance in there. And then it's definitely not going to hit anybody's noggin coming in. It's above everything. And then from the driver's seat, you pretty much can't see that bar because it's behind the windshield. So this one probably won't be quite as good, but this is a pain to put together here because this is fixed and this is fixed, so you can't like cut it and stick it in there. You gotta like cut it a little bit, stick it in there, go, oh, it's a little too big, take it out, go over to the mill, cut it again, put it in, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so all these bars are bent up and fitted. That one's still got the whatever on there, no big deal. And then I put some bend into this here. So yeah, now I got no excuses to not to weld it. And yeah, this is going to be a little bit in my view here. That one's essentially invisible, but there's not much you can do about this. So, but it's all symmetrical, like it's within, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch or something from side to side. So, yeah, it's like a 1/2 inch between that crease there. Yeah, so it's pretty good. I'm not sure what happened, but my table got clean somehow. I think the rats must have snuck in. Anyway, came up with a new plan, because that's how I roll. So I think my new plan is going to be to weld this cage in now. And then I can enter, as long as this stuff is not there, I can put the floor in through the back. It won't fit through the windshield. Normally it'll fit through the floor, but not so much. So, and then I'm going to put some temporary braces from up here to back there, and from up here to the front there. And then I can do all this, you know, ancillary welding without standing on my head. I can rotate it around here and there and everywhere. And this exoskeleton, or endoskeleton, the roll cage. And the roll cage will, you know, hold it in position for me and it won't flex. And then once that's welded in, then nothing's gonna move much. Okay, so now that I got the main cage in, I have to make some front forward bars. And so I want to tie into what I'm calling the A hoop, so kind of where that tape is. And I want to make it symmetrical on both sides because I'm anal like that. So what I did is I kind of picked a spot here that is the right width, so it clears this and it intersects with that that crossbar. And so I just took this piece of welding rod and dropped it on the floor. Don't worry about that, it'll be fine. So basically what I did, I put a nice piece of welding rod in here and stick it in there far enough. It can be on the top of the bar or on the bottom of the bar. And then I put a level on that. And one of them was 12 and the other one was 21. So the angle that this thing's on is half of that, which is 16.5 degrees. I put that hole there. And then it turns out that 16.5 degrees lines up with this little kind of stiffening rib for the hood hinge stuff, which I'm not going to be using, but I'm going to be using it now because if I put this thing at 16 degrees, which is what the angle of this is and this is, that'll have a straight shot directly into that the A hoop. So now my bar will just go straight all the way from that hoop through this hole that I haven't drilled yet. It'll come up along parallel to this. If you can see that little crease there. And then it'll bend 16 degrees and go straight forward. And then down into here. Doesn't really need a lot of structure past here-ish. It's just holding up the radiator and the bumper, which is basically just holding up chrome. So that's gonna be my plan. I'm gonna just draw a straight line between there, and the fact that that intersects it was, you know, kind of luck, but sometimes it's good to be lucky. So yeah, I'm gonna poke a hole through here, and got my hole saw. Poke a hole through there, and then I just happen to have a 16-degree bend on this part here, because one of the bends on the on this bar here, that one down there is 16 degrees. So, and this is the one I used to kind of figure out the angle between this one and this one. I just put a pipe in there and swiveled it around until I liked it, and then tacked it together. So I'll untack this guy and slide that through, and then notch it here, and then I'll weld another piece of pipe to it with a 90-degree bend. I just make this all out of scraps and just kind of weld it together to get it till it fits, and then I'll make up a bend sheet based on what I want it to look like. And since I don't have the entire car in CAD, which, I mean, I could scan the whole car with my scanner, but the file would be so big I wouldn't be able to do anything with it. It would be unusable, so big it would just crash the computer and turn it on. So that's why I have to do it like this. For littler stuff, you know, I can scan it and kind of get an idea, but for this kind of stuff, you just gotta kind of, like, this is different on this side and that side, and right, steering column's over there, so that, like, it's just, yeah, this is what you have to do, I think, unless you got a crazy supercomputer in your spare bedroom, which I don't. But anyway, I'll get to chopping the hole in there and bending up some bars, and then when I weld this in, this front, which is going to be supported by the rotisserie when I flip it on its side and stuff, so those forward bars will be adding some stiffness and some structure to here, especially since I cut these guys out. And then for the rear, since I can't put the rear bars in, they're done, but I can't put them in because I got to get the floor through. So I'm just gonna make some brackets that go down here. Maybe weld to this trunk thingy here, this trunk structure, and then tie it into the main hoop, and then that'll be removable. And so once I'm done with all the rotisserie stuff, mounting the body, I can put the floor in, and, you know. So way easier to work on this thing when it's on the rotisserie. So it's been way too long on jack stands. I got to get it off these jack stands so I can start welding without standing on my head, because my welds look a lot better when I'm not standing on my head. That's the difference between an amateur welder and a professional welder. They can weld around corners and standing on their head, and I can't. Okay, so I just took a piece of scrap, random length, whatever, cut off from something else I was doing, and I just notched it on center. I'm just going to drop that through the hole until it finds its happy spot. And then this is the 16 degree that I already had from, it's kind of like inside there. And this is just random length that it happened to be, and you stick that on there like that. Really good. I should do more work today, because it seems like everything's kind of going my way somehow. So I'm just going to put a mark on there, and then we'll keep adding this away until we get the whole thing, and then we'll build up a bend sheet for it and bend something up. Okay, so here's the forward bar. Comes through the firewall here, and then it tucks right up against the bottom there, and then loops back down. So, and this is forward of where the tire is ever going to get. This is the little notch when the tire swings over. It's to increase the turning radius. Not sure why it doesn't have one on here, but if we need one, we'll add that. So now that I have this kind of fitted, it doesn't fit perfectly in here. I gotta still do a little bit of monkey motion to it, but essentially it's correct. And so now I know the plane, like this leg and this leg are on, call that a plane. And then the angle between that plane and the notch, where it goes into the crossbar, that's 8.5 degrees. And then from this plane to this, it's like 11 degrees, 12 degrees. So yeah, now I can build up a bend sheet, and because this is just made out of like scraps, right? I just tacked them together and duct taped them together, whatever. And so now that I have that, I'll make a recipe. I'll bend that, and then I'll make a reverse image of that for the opposite side, and then that will be. And the reason I didn't just come straight all the way up to here is because I don't know if you can tell, but right around here is where it starts not being straight anymore. Like this is all straight from here to here. And then when it gets up to here, it starts curving down like the hood does. So that's why I curved it down there. I mean, among other reasons. But I'm going to have a crossbar going across here as well to kind of tie all this stuff together. But I have to be able to get the motor in and out and remove this. And I don't know if you can see, but you can't remove this way. But you can remove this forward, and once you remove this forward, you can pull this and this out. So I don't want to make it so you got to pull a motor to get an air conditioning pump off or power steering pump off, right? That's just silly. Only Chrysler would do something like that. Okay, so these are all bent up. This is supposed to have an inch extra on the end. Pretty close. Pretty close. And it looks like I bent it the right direction-ish. So, yeah, you gotta take your time with that, but you can get good stuff off of it. Okay, so I got this bar bent up. Gonna go pretty much like that. And then this will tie into the gusset that is going to replace this guy, and the crossbar and all that stuff. And I still have room for my, not to modify them probably, but my bumper brackets will still bolt on here. Look how nice that's lined up from the factory. It's pretty good. That bolt almost has clearance. And then this is, I'll be able to tack weld the sheet metal that's going to go in here to that. So it'll tie into this bar, which is nice and stiff, of course. And then the upper mount for the, I'll put another bar here-ish. And then the shock mount will come off of that. So yeah, this is looking tidy. Now I just gotta make the opposite side, which I won't bore you with, but and that's, you know, looks easy enough to weld. Well, not easy enough, but possible. Okay, side's already done. And I bent up a mirror image of it. So now this guy's done as well. Yeah. I need to make a little plate, kind of a spreader plate here that I'll weld a plate, like an 1/8 inch plate, to this. That spreads this out, and then I'll weld it in with rosette weld and around the outside to this. So this thing isn't just like stuck to the, you know, an isolated part of that. So anyway, this is all looking really tidy here.